Caesar, of 123 and a quarter acres of forested and rocky mountainside, located in the hamlet of Wassaic, in the village of Armenia, the town of Dover, the county of Dutchess, in the state of New York. The deed gave me title to the tract. I was now legally entitled to possess it. I was its owner. I could now occupy it exclusively. I had just purchased a piece of the United States of America. A morsel of the continent now belonged exclusively to me. Since the total land surface of the planet amounts to some 36,652,096,000 acres, let's say 37 billion acres, I could declare on walking out into the sunshine on that July evening that my 123 acres, a little over 3 billionths of its extent, were now mine and mine alone. It was the first time in my life that I had ever done such a thing, had ever come to own a piece of real property anywhere. Personal property, yes. I had owned cars, computers, dishwashers, books, fountain pens. But real property, and its kissing cousin, real estate, this was a first. I should say as a footnote, there's a subtle difference between the two terms. While real estate has come to mean the tract and any improvements made to it, a house, for instance, the term real property signifies in addition the so-called bundle of rights that can come with simple ownership, the rights, for example, to occupy, to sell, to mine, to clear away timber, to prevent trespass, to exclude others. Further explanation later. So this was a first for me, and more or less the first time for anyone in my family. Back home in England, my parents, whose lives had been mostly spent in respectable impoverishment, had in their later years managed to buy a small cottage in the English Midland county of Rutland. Since their house came with a tiny postage stamp of a garden, with a lawn and some shrubs and a dribbling water feature, it can technically be said that once they had discharged their mortgage, they did indeed own real estate, albeit only a vanishingly small parcel of it. It'd be stretching things, straining credulity, to hazard a description of them as landowners. It was much the same for my grandparents, whose circumstances were similarly straitened. Both the paternal side couple, who had lived in England, as well as those members of my mother's rather more complicated side and who came from Belgium, had had nothing of the sort. For them, as for many people, accommodation and shelter relied on the whim and commercial acumen of a series of landlords who, as the name suggested, had themselves owned the acreage on which my various grandparents had settled. I was given to understand that all the generations of my ancestors before them were unburdened by ownership also, had never owned an acre or a hectare, a caudle, a fardel, or a vergate, nor any fraction thereof. All of which made my receipt of that Dutchess County title a document of such letterpressed and engraved magnificence that I would gaze at it enraptured for hours, both historic and precious. Even though my property was neither particularly costly nor likely ever to be valuable, nor in truth was even very useful, my ownership of it had a powerful personal symbolism. A decade or so after the transaction, I travelled to Boston, to the afterdeck of an old sailing warship, where I swore an oath before a federal judge and became, in a brief but moving ceremony, an American citizen. For many years after that life-altering event, I drew considerable comfort and satisfaction from knowing that I had become fully invested, and with the square footage of mountainside under my ownership, quite literally so, in the future of my new country. I would walk the forest, my forest now, as often as I could. I'd puff and pant my way up the escarpment, following a vague and almost vanishingly overgrown track through the woods, and which led up from an ancient logger's landing. After a quarter-mile or so, I would turn off left into the deeper timberland, after which I would frequently get somewhat confused, disoriented, and even a little lost. I remembered from Boy Scouts days that moss tends to grow on the north side of the trees, and from school physics days that